It says in Lamentations 3:27 that it is good for a man to bear the yoke in his youth. And we're in New Salem village, Lincoln's home, where he lived as a young man. You can see that's the Barry Lincoln first store. And if you look down there at the very end, you'll see the last store, the second store that he had. Next to that's where the post office was, where he also worked as a post office. He did land surveying around here. So you can look around, you can see it's a neat little village here, reconstructed. There's they believe the buildings are probably in the original locations. There's only a couple buildings that are still the original, or maybe close to what they think may have been. There's, I think, one at least. There's the carding mill. The oxen will be in the back, turn the big wheel, separate the wool, comb it. But here's my thought. Abraham Lincoln, just as a young man, around 22, 21, 22, as he moved here, branched out on his own. A beautiful village, reconstructed. But it says that it's good for a man to bear the yoke in his youth. No doubt he learned many lessons. I was reading, or the guy was saying at the store back there that they wanted Lincoln to sell the liquor by the cupful, and he wouldn't do it, and he dissolved his partnership with the other fella. But Lincoln was a man of honesty and integrity, and he learned to bear the yoke in his youth as a boy in the wilds of Kentucky and Indiana, coming up to Illinois. And as they migrated, he soon became one of the greatest men in our country. Kept the Union together and gave his life for the country. But Abraham Lincoln, he bore the yoke in his youth. And that's a good lesson for all of us, our young people, to learn those lessons as a young person. But if we bear our yoke in the youth, learn those lessons. Lincoln was mostly an uneducated man. Less than a year, they say, that he had an education, but he was self-taught. He was an avid reader. He knew the scriptures. Even though Lincoln never joined the church, he was one who believed in God, especially during the days of the Civil War, when he did a lot of praying and asking God to help. But a beautiful little village here. But here's the thing. If we do what is right, if we learn those lessons in youth of honesty and integrity, when the real storms of life come, we'll be able to stand those, because God will help us. Here's a couple more cabins, as you can see. Just up a little distance here was a little church and school. They said they moved it from a distance away, I don't know, a mile or so, or half mile, I forget exactly, to this location, but it was one of the Baptist churches, I believe. Now, I don't know how they would all fit in there from this little community, but there probably was some other little churches, the circuit riders that would come along. That's the one right over here. You can see that there. I can't see what I'm recording too well because of the sun. Now, we're in an off season here, but it sure would have been nice if they had the animals out and more of the costume characters. That would have been really, really neat. As you can see, some cabins up there. I believe one of those was the original one with the barrels up there. That one, they're positive. They said with the layout of the town and the excavations, and must have been a lot of the timber there or whatever, they were able to rebuild it. Come up from the blacksmith shop here. They had to make everything. Very little could come in. She knows in some of the houses they have some of the china and some of the pottery and things, but a lot of it was local made. Much different than we are. This whole little village area is on a knoll, a little ridge, I guess you could say, which is kind of nice. Okay, we'll catch down a little ways. Bearing the yoke in your youth, you learn how to survive. Notice some of these old cabins here. Look at the gutter system they have on there. Isn't that kind of interesting? Water runs off, and this is an interesting place. The middle part they said used for eating, trying to keep cool. No air conditioning in those days, but these cabins, the ones you can go in, seem to be fairly cool, even though it's pretty warm. Probably about 80 out here, I'd imagine. But beautiful place. Here's that house I was telling you they knew that's the Cooper lived there. Made barrels. A lot of the stuff was packed up into barrels and shipped out, whether it's flour, pork, or whatever it may have been. Beautiful place. But bear the yoke in your youth. Serve God. So that one of these days, know Christ as your Savior. One of these days when life's over, we'll be able to go to heaven. I'll turn around here. Lincoln, no doubt, saw many of this here, walking up and down these little lanes. May God help each of us to serve Him.